Howdy. This week we're talking about purpose and spreading the gospel. Now, what we've talked about so far is that people have a purpose. Our lives have meaning. The here and now, this world does have a purpose and a point, and so do we. Now, I want to connect this with spreading the gospel by looking at the story of Stephen in Acts 7. Now, Stephen is about to tell his testimony to the people that had brought him before the council. And the high priest said, "Are these things so?" And Stephen said, "Brothers and fathers, hear me. The God of glory appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he lived in Haran, and said to him, 'Go out from your land and from your kindred, and go into the land that I will show you.'" Skipping. "And so Abraham became the father of Isaac, and circumcised him on the 8th day. And Isaac became the father of Jacob, and Jacob of the 12 patriarchs." Skipping ahead. "And Jacob went down into Egypt, and he died, he and our fathers, and they were carried back to Shechem and laid in the tomb that Abraham had bought for a sum of silver from the sons of Hamor in Shechem." Skipping further. "At this time Moses was born, and he was beautiful in God's sight. And he was brought up for 3 months in his father's house, and when he was exposed, Pharaoh's daughter adopted him and brought him up as her own son." Skipping further. "An angel appeared to Moses in the wilderness of Mount Sinai, in a flame of fire in a bush. When Moses saw it, he was amazed at the sight, and as he drew near to look, there came the voice of the Lord, 'I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, and of Isaac, and of Jacob.' And Moses trembled and did not dare to look." Skipping further ahead. "Our fathers had the tent of witness in the wilderness, just as he who spoke to Moses directed him to make it, according to the pattern that he had seen." Skipping forward. "Yet the Most High does not dwell in houses made by hands, as the prophet says, 'Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool.'" Skipping forward. "You stiff-necked people, uncircumcised in heart and ears, you always resist the Holy Spirit. As your fathers did, so do you." And then skipping further. "You who received the law as delivered by angels and did not keep it. They killed those who announced beforehand the coming of the righteous one, whom you have now betrayed and murdered." And then to the last portion. "Behold, I see the heavens opened, and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God." Now, when we look at this, what we see is that Stephen is not just trying to skip over to the heaven part of this. What he does is he grounds his story in real-life events that have happened in this world. What he does is he talks about how each person that they knew the story of had a purpose and a meaning, and that God had worked through each of them. But then he showed how their lives had interacted then in such a way as to point toward the true Messiah, Jesus himself. He talked about how it was that Jesus was grounded in this reality and was doing what nobody else was able to do in this world. And it was only after he had pointed everything toward Jesus through everyday life experiences that he finally spoke about heaven. Now, with this is that we need to understand that so much of what people need to understand and learn about God has to be grounded in the world that we live here and now. And by doing so, by connecting our witness to what God has done in our lives and in the lives of others around us, we can then connect with other people's experiences so that it makes sense to them in a way that they can understand. So before we get to talking about how Jesus brings us closer to God in heaven, how can we understand the way in which God transforms our lives through Jesus in the here and now life?